and welcome to English Without Limits. I'm Julia, and here on this podcast, we share stories, conversations, and everyday moments to help you improve your English naturally. In today's episode, we'll explore daily life, friends, routines, and small but meaningful stories. Each one will give you listening practice and expressions you can use in your own conversations. So sit back, relax, and let's begin. Let me start with a story about my friend David. Recently, he decided to change his mornings completely. Now, he wakes up at 6 o'clock, drinks a glass of water, and spends 20 minutes stretching. He says this helps him feel more awake and focused. One morning, I visited him. He looked calm, fresh, and happy, so different from the tired way he used to start the day. After stretching, David makes a healthy breakfast, usually eggs, toast, and green tea. He also told me that planning meals ahead saves him a lot of stress. He laughed and said he used to waste more time deciding what to eat than actually cooking. That small change transformed his whole day. Now let's move to friendships. Last Saturday, my husband and I met our friends Sarah and Michael in the park. Sarah had just bought a new bicycle and couldn't wait to try it out. Michael, who loves running, suggested we go for a short jog first. We ended up doing both. Sarah gave me cycling tips, and I shared some stretching exercises with her. While in the park, we noticed a group of people planting flowers. It was a community project to make the park more beautiful. Michael said it reminded him of his childhood, when he and his father would plant flowers every weekend. I felt inspired, and later decided to join the project myself. It felt good to do something small that could make a difference. Now let's talk about daily routines, like grocery shopping. Last Wednesday, I went to the supermarket with my husband. I always make a list before shopping. It saves time and money. But my husband prefers to walk around and choose whatever looks fresh. Sometimes he finds things I never would have thought of, like new vegetables or interesting spices. In the end, combining both methods makes shopping both efficient and fun. Speaking of food, my neighbor, Mr. Thomas, has a small garden where he grows tomatoes and herbs. One morning, he invited me to pick fresh basil for my pasta. While I was there, he explained how watering plants in the morning is better than at night. He also said that talking to plants helps them grow faster. I found it funny, but I tried it, and my herbs are thriving. Now let's move on to transportation. Last Friday, I took the bus to visit my husband's workplace. I discovered a new app that shows buses in real time. When they arrive, how full they are. It made the commute so much easier. While waiting, I ran into an old friend from school, Lisa. We hadn't seen each other in years. We caught up about our families, jobs, and hobbies. That short meeting reminded me how small encounters can brighten your day. At home, we also face little challenges. Last weekend, my husband tried fixing a leaky faucet. At first, it looked simple, but soon we realized the pipe was old and needed a new part. We went to the hardware store, and the owner gave us useful advice to prevent future leaks. It took us a couple of hours, but in the end, the faucet was fixed, and we had learned something new. Let's continue with learning new skills. My friend Julia recently started baking bread. At first, she thought it was too difficult, but one evening she invited me to try her very first loaf. It wasn't perfect, but it smelled amazing and tasted delicious. She told me that learning step by step, even when it feels hard, gives her a real sense of achievement. Listening to her, I felt motivated to try baking cookies next weekend. Now let's talk about technology. Every morning, my husband reads the news on his tablet, while I use mine to plan meals and schedules. One day, we switched. I read the news and he did the meal planning. It was fun to see things from each other's perspective, and it gave us a fresh look at our routines. We also recently reorganized our living room. We moved the furniture, cleaned the shelves, and added a few small plants. Suddenly, the space felt brighter and more welcoming. My husband suggested creating a little reading corner by the window. Now, every evening, we sit there with a cup of tea, reading or planning the week. A small change in the environment truly lifts your mood. Here's another story I love. My friend Peter invited us to cook for a community event. Together, we chopped vegetables, stirred sauces, and prepared meals for local families. It was hard work, but also so much fun. At the end of the day, watching people enjoy the food we had made, I felt proud. Helping others, even in small ways, brings joy and connection. Talking about shopping again, last weekend we visited a farmer's market. There were fruits, vegetables, bread, and cheese. We met a farmer, Mr. Lee, who explained how he grows his vegetables without chemicals. We bought tomatoes, carrots, and honey. On the way home, we talked about how buying fresh and local food is not only healthier, but also supports the community. Let's move to hobbies. My friend Sophia recently started calligraphy. She showed me how she uses a brush pen to draw beautiful letters. She said it requires patience and helps her relax. I tried it too, though it was tricky. I enjoyed the process. Creative hobbies like this help us slow down and focus. Now, let's talk about finances. Recently, my husband and I started tracking our monthly expenses. We made a simple chart for groceries, bills, and savings. At first, it felt tedious, but soon we noticed patterns and ways to save. Small steps like this reduce stress and bring financial stability. Speaking of conversations, last Tuesday I had a long call with my friend Mark. He had just moved to a new city and shared his experiences about finding an apartment, meeting neighbors, and learning the transport system. I gave him a few tips, and in return, I learned about his new life. Conversations like this not only strengthen friendships, but also give us natural English practice. Now, about home routines. One afternoon, my husband and I cleaned the kitchen thoroughly, organizing cabinets, scrubbing surfaces, and washing dishes. While cleaning, we talked about ways to avoid clutter. Simple routines like this may seem small, but they make daily life more peaceful and less stressful. Another little story. Last weekend, we baked a cake. The first try was messy, we forgot a few steps, but we laughed, tried again, and the second cake turned out perfectly. That reminded us that mistakes are just part of the process. With patience, learning becomes more enjoyable. Let's talk about nature. Last Sunday, we went for a hike near a small forest. The air was fresh, the trees tall, and birds were singing. We even discovered a quiet stream. Spending time outdoors cleared our minds and reminded us of the importance of slowing down. And of course, small celebrations matter too. Last Friday, my husband and I celebrated our wedding anniversary at home. We cooked dinner, lit candles, and shared memories. No fancy restaurants or gifts, just time together. And that made it truly special. Before we finish, let me share a cooking story. My friend Olivia sent me her recipe for homemade pasta. I followed the steps, and although my first attempt wasn't perfect, the taste was amazing. My husband helped me roll the dough. We laughed the whole time. Cooking with friends' advice is a wonderful way to learn, practice English, and enjoy food together. And one last story about travel. Recently, we tried a new bus route to a nearby town. The trip was smooth, and along the way, we practiced asking for directions and buying tickets politely. Experiences like these make us more confident in both travel and language. Hello again, and welcome back. I'm Julia, and this is Without Limit English. Together, we're practicing English through real stories, daily routines, and conversations. Today, I want to share more simple stories from daily life that can help you learn naturally. Let's begin with family. My husband and I recently organized a family day. We invited his brother and his family for a picnic in the park. We packed sandwiches, juice, and some games for the children. Everyone laughed, played, and enjoyed time together. Watching everyone interact reminded me how important teamwork and connection are in family. Spending time with family teaches patience, understanding, and appreciation. Now, let's move to small surprises. Last week, my husband brought home fresh flowers for the living room. It was unexpected, but it made me smile immediately. The flower added color and a fresh scent to our home. Small gestures like this can brighten a day more than any expensive gift. I also want to talk about reading. I started a biography of a famous scientist. The book explained how small experiments and even mistakes led to big discoveries. While reading, I realized that persistence and curiosity are key to learning. My husband read part of it too, and we shared our thoughts together. Talking about books helps build vocabulary, comprehension, and critical thinking. Let's talk about friends and teamwork. Last Thursday, my friend Henry invited us to help him paint his new office. We prepared brushes, colors, and protective sheets. While painting, we chatted about work, hobbies, and future plans. By the end of the day, the office looked great, and we all felt proud. Small projects like this teach communication, cooperation, and creativity. Now, let's move to breakfast. Last Monday, my husband and I tried a new recipe, oatmeal with fresh fruit and nuts. I thought it would be too simple, but it turned out delicious. While cooking, we talked about how important it is to start the day with a healthy meal. We also planned our week ahead, and breakfast became a calm, useful time. Talking about technology, my husband showed me a new app for learning English. The app lets you listen to conversations, record your voice, and check pronunciation. I tried reading a short story aloud, then listened to my own recording. My husband gave me feedback, and I noticed quick improvement. Using technology like this makes learning interactive and fun. Now, a story about the library. Last Saturday, we visited our local library. It was quiet, peaceful, and full of interesting books. I chose a travel book, and my husband picked one about history. The librarian even gave us recommendations. Visiting the library is not only relaxing, but also a great way to discover new ideas. Let's switch to gardening. Recently, we started a small balcony garden. We planted tomatoes, lettuce, herbs. Every morning, we water the plants and check for growth. Last week, we saw our first tiny tomatoes appear. Gardening teaches patience and gives a wonderful sense of achievement. Talking about neighbors, We recently met Mr. Allen, who just moved next door. He invited us to see his home and garden. We shared ideas about decoration and gave each other tips. Simple conversations like this help build a friendly community and create opportunities to practice casual English. Now, let's talk about public transportation. Last Thursday, my husband and I took the metro to see a new exhibition. We checked the schedule, planned the route, and discussed which exhibits we wanted to see. Traveling this way gave us a chance to practice asking questions and understanding announcements. It also reminded us how useful public transport can be for everyday life. I also want to share a story about cooking for friends. We invited Emma and James over for dinner. We prepared pasta with homemade sauce and a simple salad. There were small mistakes in the kitchen, but they made us laugh. Sharing a meal created natural conversation and made practicing English more enjoyable. Talking about hobbies, my husband started learning chess. At first, I didn't understand the strategies, but he explained them patiently. After a few games, I began to enjoy the challenge. Chess is great for patience, planning, and thinking skills. It also encourages communication as we discuss moves and strategies. Next, let's move to a home project. Last weekend, we repainted one wall in our living room. We chose a light blue color to make the space feel brighter. While painting, we talked about decoration ideas and where to put photos. The project was simple, but it made the room feel fresh and new. Now, a short walk story. One evening, we explored our neighborhood on foot. We discovered a bakery and a small shop selling handmade candy. As we walked, we practiced describing what we saw in English. Walking like this is good for health, but also helps build vocabulary. Let's talk about organizing time. Last Friday, my husband showed me how to keep a personal calendar. We wrote down appointments, tasks, and reminders. At first, it seemed tedious, but it really reduced stress. Planning together also improved our communication at home. Now, a story about a cafe. We visited a new one in our neighborhood. It had soft lighting, calm music, and a cozy atmosphere. While sipping coffee, we talked about how design changes the feeling of a space. Even reading the menu and asking questions gave us English practice. Talking about volunteering. Last month, we joined a small charity. We arranged chairs, drinks, and guests. We met new people, heard different stories, and felt the community. Helping others is a wonderful way to learn language and build connections. Let's talk about local travel. Last weekend, we visited a small lake near the city. We took a boat ride, fed ducks, and walked along the shore. While relaxing, we compared it to past trips and shared memories. Spending time outdoors gives both joy and learning opportunities. Another cooking story. My husband found a recipe for vegetable stir-fry. We gathered fresh vegetables, cooked rice, and followed the steps carefully. At first, it looked complicated, but working together made it fun. The dish turned out delicious, and we even talked about ways to improve it next time. Now, let's talk about celebrations. Last Tuesday, we celebrated a friend's promotion with a video call. We prepared a small cake and sent a message. During all, we shared stories and laughed together. Even virtual sessions create warm memories and strengthen friendships. Talking about chores. Last Saturday, we cleaned the windows. We used soapy water, soft cloths, and shared little tips. While working, we talked our plans for the week. Even simple cleaning becomes enjoyable when done together. Let's move to weekend planning. We made a list of activities, a park visit, cooking lunch, watching the sunset. Planning together gave us something to look forward to, and the day felt special. Now, a short bakery story. We explored a new bakery in our neighborhood. The smell of bread filled the air. I chose a croissant and my husband sourdough. I enjoyed the food and taught how places joy. Talking about home organization, we focused on the kitchen drawers. We sorted utensils and gadgets, then labeled each section. It made finding things much easier. While working, we practiced words for kitchen items in English. Now, photography. My husband loves capturing nature, so we visited the park with our cameras. We took photos of trees, flowers, and the river. We talked about angles, light, and framing. Describing what we thought was a great English exercise. Now, let's talk about transportation. Last Friday, my husband and I decided to try a bicycle sharing service to visit a nearby town. While riding, we talked about safety tips, traffic rules, and the route we plan to take. Exploring new paths not only makes the journey exciting, but it also helps us practice descriptive English and gives confidence in giving and receiving directions. And of course, it's a fun way to mix exercise with practical learning. Speaking of hobbies, my husband recently started learning some simple guitar chords. He invited me to join him, even though I had no experience. We practiced little melodies together and discussed techniques like finger positioning and strumming. Learning music as a team encourages patience, cooperation, and gives us natural chances to use English while describing actions and giving instructions. Now, let me share a story about a small home decoration project. We decided to rearrange our living room bookshelves and add a few decorative touches. While sorting books by size and category, we shared design ideas and color combinations. Small creative projects like this give us useful vocabulary for interior design while also bringing a sense of accomplishment and joy. Talking about local exploration, last Saturday, we visited a small botanical garden. It was full of plants, flowers, and trees from all over the world. As we walked, my husband described details like texture, color, and shape. Observing nature like this helps practice descriptive language while also sharpening attention to detail in English conversations. Now, let's move on to food. Always a favorite topic. Recently, we tried making homemade dumplings. We prepared the dough, filled it with vegetables, and folded each piece carefully. While cooking, we discussed flavors and different methods of preparation. Trying new recipes together is not only delicious, but it's also a wonderful way to practice teamwork and English vocabulary. Talking about shopping experiences, last Sunday we went to a local market for fresh fruits. We compared prices, checked ripeness, and discussed ways to use them in meals. Shopping in this way helps us practice polite questions, descriptive words, and real-life English conversation. Now, let me take you on a quiet evening walk. We strolled through a residential street with small gardens and cozy houses. My husband pointed out the flowers, and I described the colors and shapes. Simple walks like this improve vocabulary, observation skills, and help us express ideas naturally in English. Speaking of home projects, last week we built a simple shelf for our balcony. We measured the space, cut the wood, and assembled it step by step. While working, we talked about tools, safety, and instructions. Hands-on projects like this make vocabulary practice meaningful while also improving teamwork and problem solving. Now, let's move into community life. Last month, we joined a local park cleanup event. We collected trash, planted flowers, and even painted benches. Along the way, we spoke with other participants and shared ideas about keeping the park beautiful. Community activities like these give wonderful opportunities to practice conversational English while also building connections with others. Talking about travel, last weekend we explored a small historic village nearby. We wandered narrow streets, visited shops, and spoke with locals about traditional crafts. Describing new places not only improves vocabulary, but also storytelling skills. And retelling the experience later is a great way to practice past tense naturally. Now, a quieter activity, reading together. Recently, my husband and I picked up a travel book. We took turns reading chapters aloud, then discussed the scenes and rephrased them in our own words. Reading together helps with pronunciation, comprehension, and learning to express ideas more clearly in English. And, of course, we can't forget exercise. Last Monday, we went for a morning jog in our neighborhood. We warmed up, ran for about 20 minutes, and stretched afterward. While jogging, we talked about health, weather, and personal goals. Exercise is a perfect chance to describe routines and share tips in everyday English. Now, on to small celebrations. Last Thursday, we joined an online party for a friend's promotion. We prepared some snacks, joined a video call, and shared congratulations. During the call, we exchanged stories, laughed at little jokes, and enjoyed the moment. Celebrating achievements, even virtually, is wonderful for practicing social English and expressing emotions naturally. Talking about home organization, last weekend we worked on our study area. We sorted books, arranged stationery, and cleaned the desks. My husband suggested labeling folders and creating a schedule for better focus. Organizing together provides lots of chances to practice practical vocabulary while planning tasks effectively. Now, let's go back to cooking. Last Sunday, we made pancakes with fresh fruit. While mixing and cooking, we discussed measurements, techniques, and even how to make the presentation look better. Cooking side by side creates natural conversation, teamwork, and vocabulary practice in a very tasty way. For outdoor activities, we recently went hiking in a nearby forest. The trail was calm, with birds singing and leaves rustling in the wind. We described the scenery, observed animals, and compared it to past hikes. Outdoor adventures help us build descriptive language, storytelling skills, and vocabulary about nature. Now, let's talk about learning new skills. My husband picked up sketching, and he invited me to join. While drawing, we talked about proportions, shading, and techniques. Practicing creative skills like this is not just fun, but it also introduces new English words in context. Last Tuesday, we visited a small local art gallery. The paintings from local artists were full of color and emotion. We walked slowly, pointing out our favorite pieces and describing the feelings they gave us. Talking about art helps practice descriptive English and improves how we explain our own thoughts. At home, we recently organized our pantry. We grouped grains, spices, and canned foods, and my husband suggested using clear containers. While arranging everything, we talked about meal planning and how organization saves time. Projects like this give practice in practical vocabulary and everyday planning. Now, another kitchen story, trying a new cooking method. My husband found a recipe for roasted vegetables with special spices. We prepared the vegetables, roasted them carefully, and experimented with flavors. Cooking like this improves teamwork, patience, and gives plenty of natural English conversation. For outdoor exploration, last Sunday we went to a small lake near the city. We walked along the shore, fed ducks, and took photos of the scenery. My husband described the clouds and reflections on the water. Observing and describing nature is an excellent way to strengthen vocabulary and narration skills. And finally, let's talk about new hobbies. Our friend Anna invited us to try pottery. She gave us clay and tools, and we shaped small bowls and cups. At first, it was tricky, but soon we enjoyed the process. Describing shapes, textures, and techniques gave us new vocabulary and chances to practice instructions naturally. And one last stop, local shopping. Last Thursday, we went to a farmer's market. We bought fresh vegetables, bread, and honey. While choosing, we discussed quality, taste, and meal ideas. Shopping in this way provides real opportunities to practice polite questions, descriptive words, and real-life English conversation.
Welcome back to English Without Limit. I'm your host, Yulia, and in this part of our journey together, I want to share a series of simple stories and routines that not only enrich daily life, but also give us natural ways to practice English. Let's begin with a story about home exercise. My husband and I decided to try a short yoga session right in our living room. We followed along with a video, stretching carefully and focusing on our breathing. While exercising, we talked about different techniques, corrected our posture, and described how our bodies felt during each movement. Small routines like this don't just improve our health, they also provide natural opportunities to practice English conversation about actions, feelings, and body awareness. Now, let's shift to small travel experiences. Just last weekend, we visited a nearby village known for its traditional crafts. We watched skilled craftsmen making pottery and weaving baskets by hand. As we observed, my husband explained parts of the process, and I described the shapes, colors, and patterns of the items we saw. Experiences like this expand your vocabulary, improve comprehension, and allow you to practice conversation in a natural and enjoyable way. Another helpful practice comes from planning home meals. Last week, we created a weekly meal plan together. We listed breakfast, lunch, and dinner options, included snacks, and organized everything into a shopping list. While planning, we talked about ingredients, cooking methods, and personal preferences. This simple activity provides wonderful opportunities to use practical vocabulary and practice the language of decision-making. Reading is another daily habit we've been enjoying. Recently, my husband and I started a book about famous explorers. Each evening, we read one chapter and then discussed what we found most interesting. We described journeys, challenges, and discoveries using new words we had learned. Reading together like this strengthens comprehension, improves pronunciation, and builds your ability to narrate stories confidently in English. Let's move to small weekend adventures. Last Saturday, we went for a quiet walk along a countryside road. As we walked, we noticed birds, flowers, and even a few small animals. We described what we saw, shared memories of past walks, and even discussed ideas for future trips. Talking about your surroundings in this way helps you develop descriptive language and expand your vocabulary naturally. Home projects can also be a powerful way to practice. For example, last week, we built a small wooden table for our balcony. We measured, cut wood, and carefully assembled each part. During the project, we discussed tools, materials, and every step of the process, all in English. Hands-on projects like this improve practical vocabulary, teamwork, and problem-solving language, while also giving you a satisfying sense of accomplishment. Now, let's think about small acts of kindness. One morning, we helped our neighbor carry groceries upstairs.
As we assisted, we spoke about our day and exchanged small stories. Acts of kindness not only make life brighter, but also provide excellent opportunities to practice polite and social English naturally. Let's return to hobbies. Recently, my husband and I tried sketching simple objects at home. We drew cups, vases, and small plants. While sketching, we talked about shapes, proportions, and shading techniques. Creative hobbies like this encourage observation, build descriptive vocabulary, and help you practice explaining processes clearly. One of my favorite moments was a quiet evening at home. We prepared tea and sat together on the balcony to watch the sunset. As we enjoyed the view, we described the colors, the clouds, and how the sky changed over time. Small moments like these are wonderful for practicing descriptive English, enhancing observation skills, and forming the habit of expressing thoughts naturally. Another story I want to share is about a local exploration. Last Sunday, we visited a small historic street in our town. The buildings had unique designs, and we noticed carved wooden doors and old, faded signs. My husband described the architecture and history, while I added details about the colors and textures of the items we saw. Exploring places like this help you practice storytelling, descriptive language, and cultural vocabulary. Cooking, of course, is always a great way to use English. Last week, we prepared simple sandwiches with fresh vegetables and cheese. As we made them, we discussed the ingredients, flavors, and even how to present them nicely on the plate. Simple cooking tasks provide natural teamwork opportunities and let you practice describing processes step by step. Another helpful activity was creating a daily routine. Recently, we designed a morning schedule that included stretching, breakfast, reading, and planning the day. While following this schedule, we discussed which activities we enjoyed most and how we could make mornings more efficient. Talking about routines is a practical way to improve organizational vocabulary and communication skills. One more experience I'd like to share is about a small local cafe. We discovered a quiet, cozy place decorated with handmade items. We ordered coffee and then talked about the decor, the menu, and the overall atmosphere. Visiting cafes and similar places gives you the chance to practice asking polite questions, describing surroundings, and sharing personal opinions in English. And finally, let's talk about outdoor hobbies. Last Saturday, we tried a bit of gardening together on our balcony. We planted flowers and small herbs in pots. As we worked, we discussed watering schedules, how much sunlight each plant needed, and even soil quality. Gardening, like many hobbies, naturally introduces you to new vocabulary while teaching you to describe everyday actions in English. Let's begin with small celebrations at home. Last Friday, we celebrated a friend's birthday by preparing a simple cake and sending a video message. While preparing, we talked about decorations, flavors, and presentation ideas. Small celebrations like this create wonderful chances to practice conversational English and to express emotions politely and clearly. Now, let's move to a short trip we took last Monday. My husband and I visited a nearby botanical garden. The garden was full of flowers in colors we had never seen before. While walking, we discussed the names of the flowers, their shapes, and even how we might grow similar ones at home. Observing nature and describing it in English is a powerful way to expand vocabulary and sharpen attention to detail. Talking about home life, last weekend we focused on organizing our living room cabinets. We sorted books, magazines, and small decorations. My husband suggested placing frequently used items on the top shelves. While organizing, we talked about how keeping order makes daily routines easier. Simple projects like this are not only practical, they also create natural opportunities to use English in everyday conversation. Now I want to share a cooking story. My husband found a recipe for a fruit tart, and we decided to try it together. We prepared the dough, arranged the fruit, and baked it carefully. While cooking, we discussed the steps, the ingredients, and even how to present. Cooking new recipes is a wonderful way to practice teamwork, process language, and food-related vocabulary. Let's talk about neighborhood exploration. Last Thursday, we walked through a street we rarely visit. We noticed small shops, colorful murals, and people walking dogs. My husband described the details of the buildings, while I shared observations about colors and patterns. Exploring new areas helps practice descriptive language, everyday conversation skills. To join an online painting workshop, we followed instructions step by step, mixing colors and painting landscapes.